Hi everybody, Colin from Flow Sport here. I am joined today with Andy Macarthur, aka Dr. Smith. Hi Andy, how you doing?
I'm fine, Colin. Thanks for allowing me this opportunity to speak to you.
No, thank you for coming on. It's very much fated. I believe that we had the meeting that we did. And just it's amazing how we meet people through other people, and we can actually then kind of join forces to help people. So we met through a mutual friend who then put me onto you, and we started talking about what I call the new epidemic in sport, and it's about snus.
Yeah,
Could you run us through, please, just a little bit of what snus is, so that we understand what it is?
sure. Snus is chewing tobacco from Scandinavia. It comes in little pouches, and people put it up here in their gums, and so the tobacco releases nicotine in the bloodstream. And one pouch is about 3.5 times stronger than a cigarette.
Well,
Now, for normal people like me and you, it's far safer than smoking tobacco, like combusting.
yeah,
So, it's about 96% safer than smoking. So, for people out there that are not in sport, great. However, there's an epidemic going on in professional sport, primarily professional football in the UK. It's quite a culture going on. And what I found, a lot of footballers don't realise just how addictive nicotine is, right?
yeah,
Nicotine is probably the fourth most addictive substance on the planet. So obviously, the more you take, you start building resistance and you need more and more. And probably the best way to put my case over, it was 4 years ago, a professional footballer came to see me and he said, Andy, I'm addicted to snus. I'm like, what's snus? And he told me. What happened? My background actually is in addiction counselling. I've been involved in the world of addiction for about 15 years,
yeah,
and that's why he came to see me. But I never knew about this stuff. So what happened? This guy was playing for a certain well-known football team down south. Well, south to us. We're based up in sunny Scotland, and it becomes such a thing for him. He actually, what he called, he got hooked off a game. He got pulled off. He was a striker because he could not concentrate. And he burst up the dressing room because they'd hidden his snus. So long story short, he came to see me. I managed to take him off it through a little protocol I've got, obviously being an addiction counsellor. And so I looked into it and I found out that so many players are taking it and don't realise. And now I've been working with certain Premier League footballers. One just came up to see me a few weeks ago. He was that strung out in it, and we got him off it. Well, the reason I want to talk to you, because we've got a nice little synergy going on here, is that it's just a culture. Footballers think that it's good for performance because obviously they're getting urine tested. Well, I know down south anyway, twice a day, so they can't use like cocaine. They can't use drugs, steroids, but they can use nicotine
yeah,
so far. So of course they use it and they think, wow, I started getting really big rush of dopamine. But they don't realise what goes up must come down.
absolutely.
And some guys are using 3 at a time. Now that's equivalent to about 9, 10 cigarettes at a time. And they can't get to sleep. So they keep using it. And what I've found is that apart from they can't really concentrate, is that the big one is on one guy, and this is what came to my knowledge, he got quite a bad serious leg injury. And the medical team said to him, you should be healed by now. It's about 10 weeks. He wasn't healing. And this guy, as I say, is a big time. And I said, you know why? He goes, how? I said, you're not sleeping. He goes, but I take some. He was taking some before he goes to bed to make him sleep. All it's doing is stopping the craving. So players are not getting the deep sleep, the deep REM sleep that we need to heal. So it actually prolongs injuries. And without getting too technical, if there's anybody in medical teams listening to this, is that it's totally back to front. What it does, it excites the mind, but it relaxes the body. So that actually makes them more prone to injuries. Really what they want is the other way around, for their bodies to get really ready and the mind to relax. So I'm on this little crusade to let people know that, well, put it this way, Colin, right? If it's snus, SNUS, for anybody that's never heard of it, got banned tomorrow as a legal substance in professional football in UK, it'd be a disaster.
Yep.
All those guys going cold turkey, and like some of them are multi-million-pound assets, and they would be strung out because nicotine is a nasty drug to come off. It's horrible. As people who know trying to stop smoking, it's not easy unless you know how. And that's where I come in. So I've been putting stuff out there, talking to footballers, but a lot of them just think, oh, it's fine because it's acceptable. And it's fine, as I say, if you're just an ordinary punter, you're far better using snus rather than smoking tobacco. But if you're an elite athlete, it's madness to use it because it's actually impeding your performance. And sometimes you're going to come off it. Apart from as well, one guy, I like to talk in like, little antidotes. That's how people learn from me. One guy, striker again. See, strikers use a lot of it, right? Lovely teeth. And he goes, oh, look at my teeth. They cost me 30 grand. I said, well, I come from a family of dentists, right? And I know that snus, what it does, because it's up there, it restricts the blood in your gums. And what happens, it erodes the bone density and your teeth fall out. He's like, what? I said, aye. He stopped once he came to see me like that because he didn't want to lose his £30,000 worth of teeth. Also, it can cause oral cancer because it's stuck there all the time. And as I say, the oxygen goes away. So basically, you're rotting. You're literally rotting your gums. So apart from performance, nicotine is a nasty, nasty drug. It's a toxin. And if you think about it, in professional football, any advantage you want, when there's hundreds of millions of pounds at stake,
absolutely,
and prized assets going about, basically, to be honest, drugged out their faces. Now, I'm just telling how it is, Colin, as you know me, and it's trying to educate people out there. And we're getting there. We're getting there. But that's why it's good to talk to you about it, because I know that you work with a lot of professional footballers. So that's really my story. It used to be illegal, but now you can actually legally buy it, which is just like nuts. Yeah.
I was just going to say, so you're right about the illegal thing. I've looked into it myself since you and I spoke a while back, and what I've found is, we've got here is same as everything else in the UK. It's regulated, but the minute you go outside the UK, it's not regulated.
Yeah. And
some of these pouches are going up to maybe like 100 milligrams of nicotine. Now, I'm going to be honest. I tried one of these guys, and he was a professional footballer, believe it or not, that let me try this, right? This is a while back. And I tried one mild pouch, and I felt ill. I started feeling sick. And, people call it a whitey, right? It's like, and he's like, look at the state of you, look at your face, you're going all pale. And I was like, I don't feel good. So I took this thing out and I threw it in the bin. And it took a while to come back. But I remember I did used to smoke, okay? And I remember I tried one time these nicotine patches to stop me coming off the smoke. Now, if I have nicotine going in, it's not the smoking I'm addicted to, it's the nicotine.
Exactly.
And this is where I didn't realise it. So we're going back in maybe 6-7 years here. But I didn't realise it's the nicotine that causes the dopamine, not the actual movement. The movement makes you do when you're bored, right? The buzz of dopamine you use when you are stressed out, when you're not in flow, and when you're not in a good place within your life. So you get too much going on, it's like an escapism and such.
Yep.
Now, imagine, as you say, you're a multi-million-pound asset for a team, okay? You're there to do a duty for your teammates, for your manager, for your club, and for your fans. And you're buzzing out your face on snus, and you don't get to perform. Your team starts to lose. The club starts to lose. What do we do here? We can't ban it because it's not an illegal substance. So we can try and fine them, but then they're going to be angry at you for fining. How much do I fine you? 150 quid? Well, that's pocket change to most of these guys. So they'll just pay the money and keep doing it. what we're looking at is really kind of being able to take people away from it and build that up so that we've not got them. How can I put it? We've not got them in a place where they feel they need to take it.
Mhm.
Alcohol's the same, sex is the same. You know, any kind of substance abuse or any nicotine's just one that's legal that we're not going to get into trouble for. These people can go to training with 3 pouches of snus in and go and play football. You couldn't go and do that with a gram of cocaine and run about sniffing lines on the pitch because you get penalised. So, who's the issue? Is it because it's legal, or is it because the players are not being, given that chance to flow to be themselves that they feel they need to escape from it? It's very difficult.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I know, well, it's common knowledge. There's some teams now that are banning it. One person, one of my contacts, who's a great friend of Joey Barton, I can say that he's totally anti-snus. So any team he manages, first thing, he bans it. Mm-hmm. And other teams are going to catch on to this or doing the same. There's one certain team up near us that the whole team was on snus. The manager tried to ban it. This is about 4 or 5 years ago. They basically, the dressing room turned against the manager. So he got sacked. But guess what? The team got relegated. Yep. And it actually does not enhance performance. It goes the other way around. It actually relaxes the body and your mind is totally buzzing. And at an elite level, well, it's all about tactics. You're a professional, an elite athlete. You need every advantage. And my point to some players I work with is like, maybe at your present club, they're allowing you to use it. But say you get transferred and say go to say like a team and it's banned, you're being polite here. You're stuffed.
Yeah.
Because if you're the I like it. Yeah, let's be polite. You'll be totally snoosed. And as I say, everything I do is under the radar. I've worked with some big names at big clubs, and I mean, obviously, I'm not going to say, but you'd be shocked. It's getting, all what I'll say is getting used at the highest level. Yep. In Premier League, Championship, First Division, and also up here in Scotland, SPL. I know for a fact, up to sometimes half the team are using it. They pass about. I saw on Twitter a Premier League team, which I mentioned about. It said that a fine was if they had their tubs of snus in the dressing room. I'm like, guys, it's like saying, well, let's just have don't show us your cocaine, because it's having a detrimental effect. And as I say, there is talk of it getting banned. And believe me, if I was a manager or even a club owner,
that's worrying.
Well, because those guys are going to be. I mean, I've seen guys in the fetus position. It is, if anybody's ever smoked or come off snus, it's not fun if you don't know how to do it, because the cravings are horrible. Totally. I mean, you'll get you'll snap, bad tempers, you won't sleep. And as I say, I mean, if you think if you think how much a Premier League footballer, I know that the average for guys on the bench, I was told by a player I'm working with, the average is 80 grand a week. Those guys are basically on the bench. I mean, a week. And they're using that because obviously, they're not online gambling. They're buying their big watches. Once they've got the Lamborghini, what do they do after that? Snus.
Everything is for the dopamine hit. And this is where I would like to talk about, the synergy between yourself and Flow Sports. So anybody knows the director of Flow Sports, Gordon Smith, anyone that knows about it. And what happened was Gordon and I had a fated meet, quite similar to yourself, almost a year ago, and we started working on how we could make a model on how to get players into flow. Now, this is where I found it really interesting when you and I spoke. We've got a way to get them into flow mentally so that they don't turn to snus, so that they don't turn to alcohol, so they don't turn to, these things that they're trying to get the dopamine from. We don't specialise in taking people off things, because then it doesn't help. It takes us away from concentrating on their growth. So this is when you and I had the conversation. I was like, this is perfect, because what will happen is you come in, you do the heavy lifting, take them off the work, and then we come in with the teachings, with the only model for the mind and the brain, to be able to energize these people unconsciously so they don't feel the need to go and get these things. And this is where I found it was a wonderful synergy. But what we don't realise is if they start banning this, players are going to crash, teams will crash, there'll be relegations, there'll be points lost, there'll be upset fans, upset boards, and there's a lot of acquisitions and takeovers. Some of these won't even go through because they're not buying, they're not playing there. Now, if I was to talk about flow, and what we do is we get them into flow so they stop using this and they just focus on what their body does. Yep. Again, what they're doing is the opposite of that, it's taking them out of flow because they're relaxing the body and focusing on the mind. The more you think about something, the harder it's going to be able to manage that. And when we talk about injuries, you spoke about, injuries taking its toll on how, your players can't feel the same. If players are all stuck in their head, there's more chance of them being injured. So if I'm out playing, I've been through my practice, for my whole life, and I'm out playing. The minute that I'm going out and my only thing is to flow to play football, but then I've now got another thought, which is like, don't get injured or don't lose. That's two thoughts for a man, which shows that a man's brain's got one thought of every time, which means it splits. And that's when the damage happens. Again, if you're in your head, you're in snooze, you're out of flow, you're not getting to play football the way you're meant to, your body's too relaxed, and all it can take is one wrong turn, and that's somebody's either career gone or the season gone, and it's very, very difficult. And when I look at, the ability of some of the players that they've got that are not able to, meet that standard, A, through snooze, or B, through the way that, there's performance at the club, and it's usually down to the interactions, but the interactions are enough to make them want to switch off from that. If I came to you and you were my boss, and I was playing forward and I was scoring 20 goals, you left and then another manager or coach came in, and I don't like you, I'm going to do my best to play for you, but if I've not got that respect, I'm not going to have the fun, and then you're going to not speak to me right, and all these things are detrimental to a player. Imagine that player's escaping with that on snooze at the same time, so he's getting no respect. Now he's switched off to you completely, and that's going to affect his career and the game itself.
Well, it ruins careers. The first player I worked with played at the highest level, a striker, and when he got hooked, he ended up playing in League Two, and he never got back. Obviously I'm not a football guy, especially if you find out the team I support. That's another story. And he lost a lot of muscle because he didn't train. He got tagged as like kind of a problem player. And now he's a good friend now. He's actually managing, but he'll remain nameless, obviously. But he said, it destroyed my career because I wasn't sleeping, and he's always waiting for when his boss, his gaffer said, that's it, you're not using it. He went into meltdown, and he knows so many, especially as well, a lot of younger players. There's a real culture of it. I know that for a fact. And it's like I had one guy text me last night who plays again at high level, on the up as well. He's only in his 20s, early 20s, and he's strung out on it. And he's scared because he goes, what freaks me out, the managers don't realise. They might as well be just chopping up coke, really.
Absolutely.
But on you go, and but this guy knows because he's beginning to realise that because they try to come off it voluntarily, and then they can, and then they're like, and it's fine like any addiction. It's like heroin. If I was a multi-millionaire, like say I was in a big rock band, I could probably be a heroin addict for the rest of my life. But usually what happens is more and more and more, and then you run out of money, and then that's when you start stealing on your job. And it's snooze, you just need more and more. And I know another player up in Scotland that was playing, in the Premier League, nowhere to be seen now, because he was known always looking for snooze. So it's not I've got no truck with it. If you're not a professional footballer or rugby player, that's a whole other story, by the way. It's happening in rugby. Fine, better than smoking tobacco. But if you're an athlete,
Marginally,
why not?
marginally.
Aye, or wait till you at least retire.
Mhm.
But if you're anyway, you're not. You're. It's just nuts. And as I say, it'll affect your sleep. It could cause oral cancer, and it's very. You're just creating a problem.
Yeah,
Because as I say,
absolutely.
I got interviewed by a certain newspaper, and they were saying the reason they came to me because there's talk of it getting banned because it's like it's a stimulant. Nicotine's a stimulant.
Yeah.
It's like caffeine on steroids. It's a very bad pun. So anyway, you could say, well, a lot of those guys tend to give themselves before they start training, they'll take some, but it's actually it's counterproductive because your body relaxes, and that's why. And this is quite new research I found out. A certain neuroscientist I found about he's talking about it. The skeletal system relaxes. So if you're getting hard tackle, you're more prone to breaking bones,
Yep.
and also your brain's your brain's buzzed, so you're not really in flow.
Yep.
So it'd be different if your mind, if dopamine, if nicotine was getting the flow state and it was tightening up your skeletal system, great, but it's not. And so that's what I'm talking. That's what I'm talking about. It's not like I'm some do-gooder. I mean, Christ, I'm an addictions counsellor. I mean, but it's like I just know there's a storm coming.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
now,
And they're going to need addiction specialists, ones that know about the product. They're going to need. I'm a flow expert in Scotland, and I'm working up and down the country. Down south as well. We're going over to Dubai soon, working the UAE. We're really kind of going places with what we're doing to get people into flow in terms of what they do in their daily life, but also within the game. The game is so important while they're in the game, but if they're not getting a game, they're not doing it. Why is that? What can they do to change that? How can we get the best out of the player? First of all, again, we can take the snooze away, but then it's going to cause more problems. It's the same as anything. And when people realise that any addiction is to gain, it's the chemicals released in the brain that they're addicted to.
Yeah.
So we can take them off snus, and then they'll find alcohol. We take them off alcohol, they'll find cocaine. We take them off cocaine, they'll then find sex. You take them off sex, and they'll find. So if we're constantly taking people off things to get them into flow, rather than us, what we're able to do is take them off it and then show them how to flow and say, this is why you will not go near any of these things, and this is how you can all gain, this bringing together as a team, work as a team, and respect each other. This is where we're needing to do it. Right, I've got another guy that I'm going to be speaking to, over the next couple of weeks, and what he's talking about is racism, within the game as well. And it's all these things are epidemics, and it's like we have got ways to dissolve all of it. And it's not just a case of stopping doing it. You can't tell somebody to stop being racist. You can't tell somebody just to stop doing it because there's always a reason behind something. So what we want to do is we want to work with the individuals in the team to allow them to grow within, and then we don't need to worry about anything that's gone. And the other thing, I spoke to another gentleman, and again, I'm not going to put his name, he's very well known in football, and I spoke to him last week after I spoke to you, and we spoke about the snus. And he said the next new thing that's coming up that all the younger kids and some of the older ones is sleeping tablets and Red Bull.
Really?
Sleeping tablets and Red Bull, because it's getting them to this state where I believe they're trying to do the same thing with snus. It's like they'll take the sleeping tablet, which brings them down, but then the caffeine gives them the energy. So again, their body's going to be all, but their brain's going to be wired. And again, it's having the same effect. So as much as they feel more relaxed, they're actually causing themselves, the team, the clubs, everything more harm. And they don't realise it because, as you say, if your muscles aren't tight, they're not going to protect your bones. That's why they're there. Otherwise, we'd all be just walking skeletons, right? Why do we need to be strong in these kind of games? Why do we need to be strong? It's because we need to protect everything and be able to move and manoeuvre in a certain way. That's why we're elite athletes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's quite interesting because some of the stories I heard that the top guys don't use it, I know one. Well, I've watched.
Wonder why?
Yeah, because they're so committed. Like they've got their own private chefs, and it's all about playing. And to me, obviously, there's something missing. The guys that are using it. I mean, if they're using sleeping tablets, which again is a whole. I mean, that's nasty.
Nasty.
Really nasty. And I'm thinking, well, why are you using that, guys? So again, there's like something systemic going on there.
Well,
but yeah.
So I had a conversation with Gordon, and this was right at the very, very beginning of us when we spoke. Now, everyone knows when Gordon had his time at football, he's an incredible career. You know, I mean, he's played for so many teams. He's been up to, coaching, he's been into, director of football, chief executive at, the Scottish Football Association. He's done all these things, and he's remained in the game without falling by the wayside because he wasn't always chasing that dopamine. He was in flow. He lived his life in flow. And again, a lot of this was down to, his wife doing a lot of for him so that he didn't have that extra stress. And this is what happens. We don't realise that these footballers are under pressure at work, but they're also under pressure at home. And if they don't have the right partner beside them to be able to take away that extra stress, they're going to look for other problems. So when Gordon and I, got together, we were wondering, what is it that he had that other people in his era didn't have? Why is he still in the game? Why is he still a pundit? Why is still doing his analysis? And it's all because he just kept going. He just kept living his life in flow, and everything carries on. What happens is people then, if say they're taking the snus, and then they're benched because their performance isn't as good, they'll get put in the bench. Then their confidence goes down. Then their head goes down. Then their respect goes down. Once all this happens, it's hard to get them back up. So they remain benched. And then they'll get dropped, and then they'll go to the next team and they'll drop. If they understand that we have a model for the mind and the brain that allows us to keep these players, they don't lose their ability. That's the thing. If you can play football, and you've always been able to play football, you don't just stop being able to play. You're doing something that stops your brain connecting to your feet and allowing that to happen without thinking, because we're too busy being distracted by too much to learn. Too many dramas round about us in our friends, family, circles, as well as all the stuff in work. So we've got to really look at why they want to switch off. And that's why. It's because they get too many stresses. They want to, I believe personally, they want to try and change the game so much so that these players are elite. And I'll put it to, again, I'm going to give an analogy, right? And if you look at Rocky IV, do you remember Rocky IV?
Yeah, I am old enough, yeah.
Right, Ivan Drago, the big Russian, right? And he was the big, strong, all singing, all dancing, he did all the fancy stuff, for the training. And Rocky went and he went into an old barn and he did the bare essentials, and it wasn't all the flashy lights and everything. And the little guy won because he just persevered and he was in flow. Same thing happened in Rocky 3. Was it Rocky 3? It was. Rocky 3 with Apollo Creed. No, that was Rocky 4, sorry, that's right. And he came out all singing, dancing, bells and whistles, all confident, all the show. And then the same thing happened. Somebody else came in under him because he was in more flow at the time. We need to get him back into flow. We need to get him focused. We need to get him to do it. And we've got the model to be able to do this. Mm-hmm. And you and I will be joining forces. We will be, allowing this to happen. We've got Gordon there who knows the game better than, the majority of people here. He's lived through many different eras. But then with your expertise and obviously my understanding of the mind and the brain and how to get people to flow intentionally, it's almost like a match made in heaven for any club or any player that wants to then change this. Because I don't like to see people fail. And if they understand there's ways of them not failing, we can help that. That's where we want to do it. So just to kind of tie things up, what would you say to people that are on snus? I would say, obviously, to get in contact with us, first of all, as an initial assessment. But again, do not allow the teams to fall by the wayside. If you're a manager and you can see it happening, or you're a player and see what's going on around about you, whether you take it or not, reach out, get help.
It's all about education. I mean, the guy I was texting last night, because it's culture, just gets passed around the dressing room and they don't realise it's so addictive. As I say, Google it. It's the fourth most addictive substance on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'd say every time we do is completely confidential.
Absolutely.
I've got a protocol that I can get people off it fast. Nobody needs to know. It's all above board. It's been tested by certain universities. It's all legal and get you back where you need to be. And as I say, get start performing again. Because doing it your own, if you don't know, it can be pretty horrible.
Absolutely.
It's nasty. But as I say, I've got 15 years of experience for this, and there's many ways to get you off it easily and quickly.
Yep. And I've worked with psychologists, I've worked with sports scientists, I've worked with players, I've worked with lawyers, doctors, you name it, and I'm able to show them how to get into flow in their life, because it doesn't matter if you're a football player or a high-flying lawyer in New York. We're all there. Everyone's out trying to find their addiction to switch them off from the pressure. I want people to flow through the pressure, and this is what we want to do with Flow Sport. And obviously, having you on board is just an extra, tool in our armory, and we're an extra tool to yours, because we then get to kind of keep them in that way. And it's like, it's perfect. So honestly, thank you so much for your time today. I'm really looking forward to obviously seeing where this partnership goes, seeing where we're then able to go in, and how many people are willing to, step up and say, okay, they don't need to be known publicly. It'll never be, non-disclosure agreements will always sign in order to have these people in safe places. But you're not going to be safe unless you're off it, and that's what we're wanting to do.
Superb. Well, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much indeed, and I very much look forward to speaking to you very soon.
You're very cool. All the best.
Take it easy, bud. Bye.
Take care. Cheers. Bye.